Black waitress helped an old man every day. Then his lawyers arrived with 4 bodyguards and a will. Every morning at exactly 7, the doors of Maplewood Diner opened to the sound of clattering dishes and the smell of hot coffee. Behind the counter worked Vanessa Brown, a kind-hearted black waitress whose gentle smile never faded, no matter how long her shifts ran. She had worked there for 15 years, raising her daughter alone after losing her husband. To everyone else, she was just the woman who refilled their coffee, but to the regulars, she was the warmth that made their mornings better. One freezing winter morning, as soft snow touched the diner windows, an old man came in slowly, leaning on a wooden cane. His name was Mr. Whitmore, and though he barely spoke, Vanessa noticed the sadness in his eyes. She greeted him kindly and offered him the same corner booth every day. His order was always simple: black coffee and oatmeal, but Vanessa treated it like a meal for a king. She even added extra honey the way he liked, and soon, without words, they fell into a quiet rhythm. She'd pour his coffee before he sat down, and he'd give her a faint, grateful smile in return. Over time, Mr. Whitmore began talking a little more. He told her about his late wife, how she used to hum old jazz tunes while cooking breakfast, and how the house had been too quiet since she passed. Vanessa listened as she wiped tables, offering the kind of understanding that didn't need words. When he forgot his medication one morning, she gently reminded him, and when the weather turned icy, she helped him walk to his car. "You treat me better than my own family ever did," he said once, his voice trembling. Vanessa just smiled and said softly, "That's what we're supposed to do for each other." The days turned into weeks, and the old man became part of her morning routine, like the smell of pancakes or the sound of the jukebox. The other waitresses teased her, calling him her favorite customer, and she'd just laugh. What they didn't see was how much that small connection meant to her, too. She had lost so much in life, yet in serving him, she found quiet purpose again. When she saw him, she saw her late husband's kindness, her father's wisdom, and a reminder that life still had meaning beyond bills and long shifts. Every morning, as the sun rose through the diner window, she placed his cup on the table before he even arrived, steam rising gently into the air. Sometimes he'd say, "You make the best coffee in town," and she'd reply, "That's because I make it with heart." They both laughed, sharing a moment that neither wanted to end. She didn't know it then, but those simple mornings were changing both their lives forever. One cold morning, the diner felt unusually quiet. Vanessa noticed right away that Mr. Whitmore's booth by the window was empty. She told herself maybe he had just overslept or wasn't feeling well. But as the hours passed and the lunch crowd came and went, he still didn't appear. The next day was the same. His booth remained untouched, his coffee cup unused, and the little honey jar she always kept aside for him sat unopened. Each day after that, she looked toward the door, hoping to see his familiar hat and cane, but he never came back. Weeks turned into months, and the silence at that booth started to weigh on her. Even though the seats stayed empty, Vanessa couldn't bring herself to stop setting the table for him every morning. She'd pour a cup of coffee, fold a napkin neatly, and whisper quietly, "Just in case." Life at the diner went on, but inside, Vanessa carried a small ache she couldn't explain. She missed their quiet talks, his soft laugh, and the way he thanked her every morning like it truly meant something. Money was tight, and her daughter's college fees were due soon, so Vanessa worked extra shifts, coming home late and exhausted. But whenever things got tough, she'd smile faintly and think, "Mr. Whitmore would have told me not to give up." That thought kept her going. One rainy afternoon, while thunder rolled outside, the diner door opened and 4 men in black suits walked in. They didn't look like the usual customers. Everyone turned to look. The tallest one scanned the room and asked, "Is there a Ms. Vanessa Brown here?" The sound of his voice made Vanessa freeze. She wiped her hands nervously on her apron and stepped forward. "That's me," she said carefully. The man nodded once. "Ma'am, we're the legal representatives of Mr. Richard Whitmore." Vanessa's breath caught in her chest. "You mean the old man who used to sit by the window?" she asked. The lawyer's eyes softened. "Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry to inform you, but Mr. Whitmore passed away 2 months ago." For a moment, the diner fell completely silent. The only sound was the rain tapping against the glass. Vanessa felt her throat tighten. "Oh my God," she whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "He was such a kind man. I didn't even get to say goodbye." The man adjusted his tie and continued gently. "Before he passed, he left very specific instructions in his will. They concern you." Vanessa blinked, stunned. "Me? There must be some mistake. I only served him breakfast." The lawyer exchanged a quiet look with the others before replying. "Mr. Whitmore thought very highly of you, Ms. Brown. He wanted to make sure his final wishes were carried out exactly as written." Vanessa stared at them in disbelief as the lawyer gestured toward a booth. "Ma'am, may we sit? This is going to take a while." Vanessa sat down slowly, her hands trembling as the men in suits settled across from her. The entire diner had gone quiet, the soft hum of a conversation fading into tense silence. One of the lawyers placed a thick brown folder on the table, his expression calm but serious. Behind him stood two bodyguards in dark coats, their eyes scanning the room. Vanessa's heart pounded in her chest. She didn't understand what was happening or why a group of lawyers would want to talk to a simple waitress like her. The man cleared his throat and spoke in a steady tone. "Miss Brown, I'm Mr. Lawson, attorney for the late Mr. Richard Whitmore. He had no surviving family, but before his passing, he made very clear instructions regarding you." Vanessa blinked, confused. "Regarding me? There must be some mistake. I only served him breakfast." The lawyer gave a faint smile and opened the folder, pulling out a stack of neatly typed documents. "According to Mr. Whitmore's personal notes, you didn't just serve him food. You showed him kindness when no one else did. He described you as the person who reminded him of his late wife, Eleanor, who also worked in a diner before they built their company." Vanessa's breath caught. "Company? What company?" The lawyer looked at her gently, almost surprised she didn't know. "Whitmore Industries, Miss Brown, the real estate group that owns much of downtown." A murmur rippled through the diner. Everyone knew that name. Whitmore Industries was practically a city landmark. Vanessa felt dizzy. She remembered how he used to wear simple sweaters and drive an old car, never once mentioning who he really was. "He never told me?" she whispered. "He never wanted to be treated differently," the lawyer replied softly. "He said you treated him like a human being, not a name or a wallet. That mattered to him more than you'll ever know." Vanessa's throat went dry as she watched the lawyer open the folder fully and slide a few documents toward her. "In his will, Mr. Whitmore left you a letter and legal ownership of his house on Crescent Hill, along with a trust fund of $500,000. The words hit her like thunder. She stared in disbelief, her hands covering her mouth. No, this can't be real," she said, shaking her head. "I can't accept something like that. I barely knew him." The lawyer's voice softened even more. "He said you gave him something money could never buy. Human kindness without expectation. He wanted you to know that you changed his final days." The diner was completely silent now. Someone dropped a spoon and the sound echoed like a bell. Vanessa's eyes welled with tears as she whispered, "I don't deserve this." The lawyer smiled kindly. "That's exactly why he chose you." He placed an envelope in her hand. "This letter is from Mr. Whitmore himself. Read it when you're ready." Vanessa looked down at the envelope, her name written in neat, careful handwriting. Her heart ached as she traced the letters with her thumb, realizing that the man she once thought was just another lonely customer had left behind a gift that would change her life forever. Vanessa's fingers shook as she held the white envelope the lawyer handed her. Her name was written in elegant handwriting across the front, and for a long moment she just stared at it, afraid to open it. The diner was silent around her, every eye watching as she finally slid her finger under the flap. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded neatly and smelling faintly of old cologne. Her eyes filled with tears before she even read the first line. The letter began softly. "Dear Vanessa, I came into that diner every morning thinking my life was over. You reminded me that kindness still exists in this world. You treated me like a person, not a burden." Her voice broke as she whispered the words aloud. The lawyer and his assistants lowered their heads respectfully, giving her the space to cry. She continued reading through trembling breaths. My wife used to say, the people who pour into others deserve to be filled too. You poured into me, Vanessa. Every cup of coffee, every smile, every kind word reminded me that there's still light left in the world. I want you to live without struggle. Please accept this home and this gift, not as payment, but as gratitude. Thank you for reminding an old man what humanity looks like. Signed at the bottom were his careful, shaky words. With love, Richard Whitmore. Vanessa pressed the letter to her chest, tears streaming down her cheeks. She couldn't speak. The lawyer gently placed a set of silver keys into her open palm. They were heavy, engraved with a small W. The sound of soft clapping began from one of the customers, and soon the entire diner joined in, some wiping their eyes, others smiling warmly. It wasn't about the money. It was about the meaning. The fact that a man who had come in quiet and forgotten had left behind something beautiful because someone cared enough to notice him. A month later, Vanessa visited Mr. Whitmore's grave. It was a peaceful morning, the sky streaked with gold and pink. She knelt down beside the headstone, holding a single sunflower in her hand, the same flower his wife once loved. You didn't owe me anything, she whispered softly. But you gave me everything. She placed the flower gently against the marble, tears glistening on her cheeks as the wind rustled through the trees. In the weeks that followed, Vanessa made a decision that would have made him proud. She used part of the inheritance to start a scholarship fund for underprivileged students and named it the Whitmore Kindness Grant. She wanted his name to live on, not as a symbol of wealth, but as a legacy of compassion. And though she could have quit her job and lived comfortably, she didn't. Vanessa still came to the diner every morning, still wore her apron, and still greeted every customer with that same warm smile. For her, kindness was never about what you had. It was about what you gave.